You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 20, Come Taste the Band. And coming to you from the suburbs of Chicago, where I am recovering from a nasty head cold, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the noisiest part of the littlest state in the nation is, I'm gonna use it again if I already used it, John the Wasp Matola.
Oh, well, I don't know if we've used the Wasp yet.
Well, if I haven't used it, I did, because in this album, Martin Birch is credited as the Wasp.
That is right. Yes, I was actually looking at that just before we got started. I ripped my CD. I was a little late. I thought I had the tracks, but I ripped my 35th anniversary CD, and as it was ripping, I was looking at it, and I said, "Oh, the Wasp." Imagine
Yeah.
that.
So I don't know if I have already used it, but if I did, then I get a pass this time because he is the Wasp on this album.
I mean, he's the Wasp on every album, as far as I'm concerned. That's just that's his moniker of choice, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's always the Wasp. Yeah,
that's how I've always known him until the age of the internet, when I found out that he had like 27 nicknames or something. So
Exactly. Well, in just a few short episodes, we'll be out of those nicknames. We'll have to come up with some new ones.
Yeah.
So, how have you been, my friend?
I'm good. How about you? Well, I know how you're doing. You're not, you're kind of sick, and I'm kind of in the middle of some house construction going on here. So
you may hear some banging, you may hear some sniffling, although I'm trying to use my little mute switch to get rid of any coughing. I got a couple of flagons of tea at the ready, and I have a big pile of cough drops, which hopefully I won't need to get into. And
different from your usual beer.
I was out of I caught a nasty Canadian head cold. Yeah, no beer today.
Yeah. And,
I would ever drink a beer during a day recording, because I would just fall asleep halfway through. We have you may see, if you're looking on YouTube, if we're fortunate enough to get this episode on YouTube, you can see some daylight peeking in behind me, which is very unusual.
Yeah, this is a day episode, which is why there's a big construction project going on in the building that I'm living in. So they're just like ripping out like all the siding and the decks and everything like that. So of course you don't hear that when we're recording at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, but at like noon, of course, there's all sorts of like banging and drill noises from outside and everything. But I think it's around lunchtime for the construction guys. So I think that we'll be good for a while.
All right, we'll have to see if we can power through this album on a lunch break. Bad news on YouTube. Our Stormbringer episode was pretty much completely blocked. I don't know why. It's weird. It was only some songs. Like, some songs were fine and some songs weren't.
Anyway. like you said, who knows what the algorithm is? I mean, it's like all the songs are copywritten, so who knows why? Who knows?
No, it's totally crazy. But anyway, you'll have to stick to the audio feed.
I feel like most people listen to us through the audio anyway. So
we get like a tiny amount of views on YouTube. It's just kind of there as a convenience. I'm wondering if I should even continue putting it up on YouTube. But anyway, there you have it. Lots of stuff going on social media this week, but we're just going to really want to get into this album. We have a new patron. So we have Clay Wambacher, Steve Seaborg, both coming in at the $5 tier. Peter Gardo, your beer buddy, $3 tier, and Els Murders $1 tier. I don't know if that's a real name. If it is, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Els Murders. So thank you very much for the contribution. And today we are here. Last week we talked about Tommy Bolin and kind of the lead up to him joining the band and all the amazing things he had been up to. Definitely our biggest deep dive yet into the back catalog of somebody who's joining the band. And obviously we'll have a lot more to go with future members, because they'll be older and have produced more when we get to those episodes in the future. But good introduction for where we're at right now. So as we get into Come Taste the Band, there's definitely a lot of talk in the band of like, should we continue on after Richie left? Should we even continue this? Should we just break up, call it quits? Ian Pace said in an interview, it should have stopped then, but there were certain pressures from behind. To me and John, it was a staggering blow to lose Richie. While there was a majority from the original band, it was a viable proposition to carry on, but when we became a minority, it wasn't. What really happened is that we just got talked into continuing. So,
Wow, I think it's funny to think of Ian Pace and John Lord as the minority. I mean, they started the band, you know?
right, but now they're out. This is the first time that the founding members are outnumbered in their own band.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, only outnumbered by a new guy that comes in, which he shouldn't even count.
Well, but as we see, he does, right? I mean, he kind of takes over the band, like, not in a bad way, or not in like a, not like intentionally. It doesn't seem like, but he pretty much just. This album is like Tommy Bolin featuring Deep Purple.
Yeah, which is what, when I was listening to it the other day, I texted you that. I'm like, they may as well call it Come Taste the Bolin, because it's the more I listen to it, the more I realize it's just like, as we'll get into when we listen to the songs, it's like really just like riff heavy. Like almost every song starts off with Tommy Bolin.
I loved that Come Taste the Bolin reference. I'm doing like a Google search now to see if anyone's ever. I'm not seeing anything coming up for it, but I was like,
I feel like there was like there should be like a bootleg called that or something, right?
I think you Come Taste the Bolin. I'm not seeing it. I think you coined that. Well, you definitely coined it, but I think you're the first to say come Taste the Bolin. Is definitely what this album should be called. So in the book Sail Away, Hughes says that Bolin had been living with him for 3 or 4 months prior to joining Deep Purple, which it doesn't sound like it makes any sense to me, because I know from reading that he kind of sounds like he met him at the auditions, but he states that the band knew Tommy was addicted when they let him in the band, but they didn't really understand the level of his addiction. They were aware of what was going on with Glenn Hughes, but they didn't really understand it. Tommy seemed to keep his addictions a little more quiet than Glenn Hughes, who was really out and open about it.
Well, yeah, that's, I mean, that's got to be isn't that the thing too about addicts is they're really, depending on who it is, they could be really good at concealing their addiction. And of course, if you're up for a new job and like the biggest band in the world, you're not going to be like, like blow it for yourself. Like, I'm addicted to heroin. Hire me.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, I'm Tommy. I'm addicted to heroin. Thank you. So John Lord says that in hindsight, and with no disrespect to Glenn and David, we should have finished it then and there. John Lord says they'd come a long way in 7 years, that they were wealthy, they were living in LA. Him and Ian were kind of ready to stop, but Glenn and David were hungry. They just wanted to move on. They wanted to continue and do more, because they'd only been at it for a couple of years. So Lord felt they were a strong band and they could be successful if they were able to keep Hughes in line, which was the big problem at this point. He started off very gradually and recreationally using drugs, and over the course of about a year became full-blown addicted, and now it was becoming a little bit of he was becoming a little bit of a liability in the band. In the book Smoke on the Water, Thompson talks about Lord and Pace not wanting to go through a lengthy audition process. They hated this process of auditioning people for the bands. Colin Hart and Rob Cooksey rented a rehearsal space at Pirate Sound Studio in Hollywood where they're going to hold auditions. And Hughes kind of felt like it was over too at that point. Like, he wanted to move on, but he felt like, how do you replace Richie Blackmore? So Hughes, David Bowie, and Ronnie Wood were all hanging out at this point, and they called it, Hughes called it, in a kind of cocaine club. So the three of them are just hanging out doing cocaine all the time. So this is just what happened back then, I guess. So Glenn Hughes talks about how at this point he was only like accepting, like if Coke was around, he would do it, and he was wanting to do a lot of it. But now he's moved to the point where he was actually going out and buying it himself, not just waiting for free coke to appear. And I must live a really boring life. I've never even seen cocaine. Have you like seen it in person?
I wish not to incriminate myself. In the past, I have actually.
I've never even seen it. I just have not been around a place where anyone's like, "Hey, have some cocaine."
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, not a lot. I mean, I don't live a Studio 54 lifestyle myself, but in the past, when I was younger, I have seen it. I privy to it. So, but I mean, I can imagine like that. I mean, not that, but I mean, you can imagine like somebody getting addicted to something to the point where it's like to just use like maybe a reference that most people um, could understand is like if you go to a bakery and you get a free sample or something, and you're just, wow, that's really good, and then you want cookies and cake only when they're around, but after a while you start jonesing for it, and then you go out to the bakery and you buy it yourself, and you go home and you eat it by yourself, rather than just at a birthday party or when you're in the store or something like that. And that's because, like, there are certain things that once you get the appetite for them, you're like, that's good, I want more. And I mean, and to be fair, I mean, sugar is, not as deadly, but definitely like, the same thing.
Yeah, I would have dropped dead 20 years ago if it was for that. I mean,
yeah, but definitely me too. I'd be a big bloated corpse right here.
I'm bloated. I'm just not at the corpse point yet. Like, kids go out trick-or-treating and they come home and they go to bed, and I'm like, I'll just have one of their Snickers bars. And then, like, 10 minutes later, there's like 15 empty wrappers on the counter, and I'm like, oh.
Well, I mean, that's like I'm one past that. Is I don't have any kids, so I just go out and I buy the multi-pack of candy and just friggin' eat the whole thing around Halloween.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we definitely.
Yeah. That's pretty much that.
Yeah, it's bad. And it never ends with the kids between, like, they trick or treat 4 times. Like, they do a school trick or treat, a zoo trick or treat, the neighborhood one, the actual day. They never did that when we were little. Now they trick or treat, but by the Halloween, they're like done. They're like, okay, can we like go home now? Like,
wow. I mean, I just remember Halloween being like the day.
yeah, it's
or the night rather.
My daughter's daycare at their school, the neighborhood does one, like a little thing, and then they do the actual day. So it's insane.
I remember it rained. It was raining so hard on Halloween night that it was like impossible to go out. And I remember I was so devastated that I asked my parents if it was possible that like the president would declare that like the next day would be Halloween, because I was so naive and like wanted candy so bad. They're just like, nah, that doesn't happen. Like, this is like your one shot. That's it. Kind of like.
They do that though. Like, I know I don't know if they do it here, but where we used to live in New York, they canceled it one year and rescheduled it for like another day,
Son of a gun.
Anyway. So at this point, Glenn Hughes talks of his kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, where when he becomes addicted, he's turning into this other guy. Hughes moves next door to Ian Pace because they're dating twin sisters. Hughes is dating Vicky, and Pace is dating Jackie. And as you may know, John Lord ends up marrying Vicky. So John Lord, when she breaks up with Glenn Hughes, John Lord gets in a relationship with her, and he marries Vicky, and Pace marries Jackie, and that they were married until John passed away. So,
wow,
interesting stuff. Yeah, the banging. All right, I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do to edit this out, or I might just.
That's why I'm staying quiet when there's banging, so it'll be easier.
Yeah, coming to you live from the Foundry. It's the Deep Purple podcast. We're smelting metals and making steel I-beams in the background.
Oh boy.
So Bowie ends up moving in with Glenn Hughes, and it's unclear if it's just because like, oh, they're buddies or whatever, or if he just wants to be there to make sure Glenn's okay and not killing himself. So now here they all are. They're in the situation where they're trying to figure out a new guitar player. Coverdale's first choice was Jeff Beck, and then Rory Gallagher, but neither were interested in joining the band. So Hughes wanted to replace Blackmore with Clem Clemson from Humble Pie. and they did audition him, and they said he was great, but he just didn't have the kind of charisma that they were looking for. And then they also said he also got in a huge fight with David Bowie, which kind of put them off on him. Colin Hart mentioned that the owner of Pirate Sound, Robert Simon, had done some work with the James Gang and was impressed with Tommy Bolin. And Coverdale had gotten that Spectrum album and was really high on Tommy Bolin at the time too. So they said, let's get him in for an audition. So Tommy Bolin walks in with his hair, 6 different colors and feathers hanging out of it and every damn thing. And Glenn Hughes takes one look at him, and he says this in an interview too. He says, I don't care if you get the job or not, you're coming back and we're partying tonight. Because just looking at him, he was like, this guy's a partier, my kind of guy. Like right off the bat knew that this is a guy I'm going to want to hang around with. So Tommy, he gives Tommy a little bump of cocaine, and they get to auditioning, and Lord says he was just marvelous. He plugged into a 4 Marshall 100-watt stacks, and I swear to God, it was exciting as any time we played with Richie. Ian just lit up on drums, and David came over saying, what did I tell you? Bolin says of the experience, I knew they'd been successful, but all I'd heard was Smoke on the Water and Hush. I didn't think they would be as good as they were at all, or as funky. Just to test them, to see where they were at, I started off with something very funky, and they immediately caught on. In the first song, I knew I wanted to join. So Tommy Bolin nails the audition. They tell him the next day that he has the job. He had just signed a solo deal to do some solo albums, so they had to kind of work through the scheduling of that, so because he was still going to move forward with the Tommy Bolin band doing those albums. And the band took a short break for Tommy to finish Teaser, and then they returned to Music Land with Martin Birch. And Martin Birch says Tommy was a great guitarist, but he really didn't know what he was doing half the time. He played totally on feel and got involved with Glenn quite closely with the funk thing now that came from both of them. Pace tells the story that after they got off the plane in Europe, it was Tommy's first time in Europe. So they got to Europe, and the manager would laid out all of these sleeping pills. Boom, boom, boom. 5 sleeping pills all in a row. Because, coming from Europe, you're going to be jet lagged. Take these pills, get to sleep, get a good night's sleep. You'll be good for the show. So Tommy Bolin comes over, boop, 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 pops all 5 of the pills, and he says, hey, what do those pills do? After he's already swallowed all of them.
Oh, my God.
So I think he had a very good night's sleep. Immediately, Hughes and Bolin start writing songs for Come Taste the Band. Some go for Come Taste the Band, and some were reserved for the Play Me Out album, which Glenn Hughes would do after leaving Deep Purple. Hughes said he would drink to take the edge off the coke. And as he put in his autobiography, he was into wine, but not for the fine art of tasting the grape. Just like the effect. So Hughes decided for Come Taste the Band, he was going to cut back on cocaine. So the common addict thing. Well, I'm just not going to do as much cocaine. Everything's cool. I got everything under control. I'm just going to do a little cocaine here, a little cocaine there. It's all going to be good. At one point, he stole some coke out of Tommy Bolin's stash. And after doing it, he felt really, really bad. So he gave it back to one of the road crew. And after, he gave it to the road crew. He's like, I took this from Tommy. I feel really bad. Just take it. And then he starts coming down from the high, and he's banging on the guy's door. He's like, give it back. Give me back the cocaine I just gave you. Terrible, terrible stuff. On Tommy's birthday, they went out to a bar and asked for coke. So after doing it, Glenn started freaking out because he was having this weird effect on him that he'd never had before. And then he realized he'd been given heroin, not cocaine. But Tommy was very familiar with heroin, and only being 24 years old, he was an old veteran at this. But Glenn Hughes didn't like the effect, and he never really got into heroin. He was straight up with cocaine. Hughes would talk about how he stayed up for 24 hours playing Fender Rhodes piano. He'd have them delivered to his hotel room or wherever he was. And one night, Richie's guitar tech, Rob Cooksey, was delivering a piano for Glenn when he had an accident and he was killed, delivering this piano for Glenn. And then Glenn Hughes felt really, really bad about the fact that he was, late night having a Fender Rhodes piano delivered like a lunatic. And this poor guy lost his life, which was really sad.
Jeez.
So at this point, the band kind of divides up into 3 camps. You've got the Glenn and Tommy camp, who are just off doing drugs all the time. You've got David Coverdale is kind of by himself, and then you've got John and Ian, the old guard, just kind of hanging out. So they were definitely very divided. It doesn't sound like they didn't have the interpersonal anger issues that we had when we see with Blackmore and with Gillen, but they weren't a tight, cohesive unit. And that's where we get to as we enter Come Taste the Band. And we can kick it off with some album art here. Let me get this thing pulled up. Album art, the classic Come Taste the Band album cover. You have up at the top, they had a really nice logo for one album. They decided to ditch it and go back to just plain capitalized Arial font or whatever it is that just says Deep Purple. No period though this time. And it is centered, which is nice. And then you've got this like little goblet of red wine or burgundy or whatever it is. I always kind of what's that Tommy Bolin song, Sweet Burgundy?
Yeah.
I always think of this glass of wine when that song's playing for some reason. You've got Come Taste the Band in this very elaborate font across the top of the glass, and then the faces of the 5 members of Deep Purple at this point all reflecting in the glass. Who is it?
I think that I've always loved this cover, but like upon like looking at it for a long time and inspecting it and everything, I think it's the best picture of Coverdale, and the pictures of all the rest of them are just kind of like I don't know why they use that picture of Glenn Hughes. He's just kind of like, huh?
Wow, interesting fact about that picture of Glenn Hughes. Apparently, during the photo session, Glenn Hughes was so messed up he couldn't even participate in it. And if you see, there's a series of photos around that time where you see all like 4 of them, like everyone minus Glenn Hughes, and it might have been from the same session, but he was so messed up on cocaine that they had to take an old picture they had and kind of stick it in there. So you can see kind of like Coverdale and Pace and Lord, you can kind of see their necks and their chest, but Glenn Hughes is just kind of his face there. So I don't know if that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I mean, the more that you look at it too, it kind of always bothered me that it wasn't completely centered.
Yeah, like their faces could be spaced more evenly. Yeah.
Yeah, like Coverdale could have been a little more to the right, to kind of line up with the stem and stuff like that. And I think that the picture of John Lord, I think, is the funniest because it's just like that's probably the most walrusy his mustache has ever been.
Yeah, that's peak walrus.
Yeah. But it's and I love the expression on Coverdale's face. He's just kind of like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
It's a great picture of Coverdale.
Yeah, it's just like he's got that cheeky, he's probably thinking like, if I ever have a solo album, I'm gonna call it Slide It In. You can tell he's already like developing that horny personality.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, aside from nitpicking, I always was intrigued by this album cover and liked it.
I like it a lot too. So the title of the album comes from Bolin drunkenly misspeaking. Bolin says, John, who knows every song in the book, started playing Cabaret, and I was really drunk, and I started singing by mistake. Come see the band, come taste the band. So that's how the title came. So I think it was something like "Come see the band, come taste the something." I don't know. So he was kind of misspeaking there. They didn't originally want to call it this. They were. Bolin says some people wanted a serious title like Newborn or New Breed. I think we should have an amusing title because people take things too seriously. So they came up with "Come Taste the Band." This was designed by Castle Chappell and Partners, and once again shot by Finn Costello, the gentleman who shot the Burn album cover. And John Coletta got a mock-up and showed it to Coverdale, but they'd gotten it wrong, and it said "Come and taste the band," so they had to like redo the artwork.
Yeah, that sounds like too much. Come on and taste the band.
Come on, would it kill you? It's like Katz's in New York. They have the big neon sign. It says Katz's, that's all. And the story is that the guy, went to get the sign made, and he says, I want a neon sign. It says Katz's. And the guy says, what, you want to say anything else? Says, no, just Katz's, that's all. So the sign gets made, and it says Katz's, that's all, and it's still up.
Oh, yeah.
Made
It's
made
like,
famous by When Harry Met Sally. Little
well,
movie trivia for you all.
it's kind of like those like the worst cake memes or whatever, and they're just like, if so they the people that write on cakes, like literally they're just like,
Allison with 2 L's. Yeah.
and then they write with two L's under Allison, and
Well,
Allison only has one L in it, like when they spell it or something.
and I was texting you like a couple weeks ago, and Coverdale was going on that. Coverdale just kept posting all these cake memes. It was, then I was texting you, right?
Yeah.
It was just, yeah, he just went on a kick. He must have done like 12 in a row, just like, and he'd be like, oops. And he'd show the cake, and it would be, oh, it was great.
Yeah, he has fun, Coverdale. He has a good time.
That is a guy who is just enjoying every single moment of his life. You know, like, I can't imagine him. Has he ever, you think David Coverdale's ever been sad?
No.
I can't imagine, like, I just can't imagine him being sad. He's just so, he's enjoying everything. He's just a silly man. And I love thinking of it.
Love it.
All right. So that is our album art. The back cover.
Ooh.
See, the goblet has been consumed, and there is a little lipstick mark on the glass,
So presumably by a woman
presumably by a woman.
who came and tasted the band, so to
Yes,
speak.
and then left with Coverdale.
Of course. Who else?
It's got a little track listing on the back, very simple. The gatefold, we've returned to the gatefold, finally. First gatefold since Who Do We Think We Are? We see a little bit of, gratitude to these people in the band. Special thanks. Gives the lineup of the band. Refers to Birch as
The Wasp.
a wasp. And we've got some great pictures. A picture of Glenn Hughes with a dog. Picture of John Lord next to a helicopter. Pictures of all sorts of Coverdale just kind of, pumping his fist up in the sky.
Yeah, there's some cool pics in here. Yeah.
Picture of, it looks like, I can't tell if it's Hughes and Pace with a dog in the snow.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Some action shots, some live shots. Looks like Glenn Hughes drinking a beer or something on stage. It's very cool stuff. So we got the left side of the gatefold there. There's the right side.
My favorite pictures are of John Lord and Coverdale like making the same faces on opposite sides of the gatefold, that surprised face. Like John Lord in the big picture is like, "Ooh." And then Coverdale next to
Coverdale's right next to
himself. He's like, "Oh," like he was surprised, like, "Oh, look at the yams on that one."
That's probably what he was looking at, or at least what he was thinking about. The album, the record actually came in this nice little sleeve that had the lyrics on it, which is pretty cool. One side, it had one side of the album, the other side's the other side of the album, and kind of the little grape wine tasting theme, little grapes and vines going across the top and the bottom of the liner, which is pretty cool.
I like it.
And then the ad that ran for it, much better than the Stormbringer, the weird Stormbringer ad, is says "Thirsty? Come taste the band." Also available on cassette and cartridge.
All right, that makes more sense.
Very simple, right? It says the name of the friggin' band, the album cover. Come get this album. Very not trying to be all clever. Then they had another weird ad, which was this one. It says, "There are still a few people who haven't heard of Deep Purple," and it shows a bunch of Chinese communist soldiers, probably just implying that, like they don't allow this music in communist China, which is, I'm sure, true. And then at the bottom of this it says, "Congratulations from those of us who have," and it lists EMI companies: Argentina, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, goes all the way down the list. Uruguay for our friend Piero on Twitter. And it says Deep Purple, big in almost every country in the world.
Is that Coverdale in the end doing like the Nazi salute?
I hope he's just waving.
Oh yeah, okay. It looks like his hands turned to the side. It looks like he's waving to somebody.
Yes, let's hope that.
Well, on first, viewing of that, it looks like something not as PC.
No, definitely not. That's one of those weird photo shoots. I think that's where one of those photo shoots where Glenn has the Mork from Ork suspenders and Tommy Bolin's wearing some like big platform shoes. That's actually a great photo shoot. There's some really good, if you Google, you can get some good color photos from that photo shoot where David Coverdale, like Hughes and Bolin look just absolutely high out of their minds. Pace and John look like they're tolerating it, and David Coverdale just looks like very suave and cool. There's great pictures. I like Coverdale with the beard. I think he should have kept that. It's a good look.
Yeah, bearded Coverdale is pretty awesome.
Pretty good look for him. So there you have it. That's the album art for Come Taste the Band. So as we talked about before we get into the instrumentation here, Bolin was the main contributor on 7 of the 10 tracks on this album. If you include This Time Around and Ode to G as separate tracks, that's pretty incredible considering, like you said, he was just a replacement. He came in, but not only did they get the playing of Bolin coming in and just playing over stuff that they'd already written, they got somebody who came in and basically had an album ready for them and was just bursting at the seams with all this great material to record. So it was quite an acquisition for them and probably made things in the studio a heck of a lot easier. But I don't think until getting ready for this show, I don't think I ever really realized how much he dominated this album.
Well, I mean, even if you looked, I forgot to mention, if you look in the gatefold where they list the band members, Tommy Bolin is listed first.
Yeah, I mean, he either had a good agent or just I don't know what it was, but I mean, man, what an accomplishment, and what a terrible loss that he died so young. Because I mean, he did so many great things, and imagine what he was destined for.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready to get into the tracks?
Yeah.
All right. Our first track up is the album opener, Coming Home.
I love that Tommy Bolin guitar effect.
And this slide that comes in. Very Bolin flavor right from the first notes.
And I like that John Lord is banging on the piano in the background.
Great piano rocker. Now this is the last song they did for the album because they realized they were one song short. And Glenn Hughes does not play or sing on this.
Huh.
Because he had already left early to go back to rehab. So if you listen here to the vocals, that's Bolin doing the background vocals.
Wow, you could have fooled me and said that was Glenn Hughes.
The song was credited to Coverdale, Pace, and Bolin. Coverdale remembers going off with Bolin to write it. He said, "We discovered we were a few minutes short for the album and we couldn't have a 15-minute side. So Tommy Bolin and myself went off and wrote it in the studio. I just rediscovered recently that Pacey's on there in the credits. I don't know what he did apart from play the drums. Anyway, he's got that 100 miles an hour tempo that's still intact. It's like a tobacco auction trying to sing the bloody thing." Kind of a classic little Lord thing there, like the swirling organ.
I think that was Tommy Bolin.
Oh, maybe it was because he is playing piano on this. He's bringing in a lot of new effects.
Yeah. I always really enjoyed this guitar solo a lot. I love it. And I mean, he does a lot of repetitive stuff here too, but it doesn't really matter. It works.
Yeah, repetitive stuff works.
And I love the little piano thing that John Lord throws in at the end of the solo here.
Oh yeah.
I love it because he's in the background being like, "Yeah, I'm into it." So Bolin played the bass on this. Huh.
and of course did the background vocals. And they said they only played this live a few times. If you hear Glenn Hughes talk about it, he kind of jokes about the song, about Tommy Bolin's background vocals. He goes, "Covered hole." I don't know why he thinks it's funny.
Yeah, it's not really my favorite chorus. Like, I feel like it's a little too mellow. I mean, I'm used to it at this point, but it's just like, I don't know, who knows what Glenn Hughes would have done if he was singing on it.
Right. I'm sure there's got to be a live version out there somewhere of him singing it. Great guitar at the end here.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's pretty awesome. That's probably one of my favorite songs from this. Well, definitely my favorite song from this album.
That's your favorite song from this album?
At least one of them. I always liked it. I mean, I always loved like the guitar, Tommy Bolin, like the effects. I knew a while ago what that effect was called that you thought was John Lord. It was like,
it's like,
yeah, like a while ago I had read something like way back, you know, when I had got into this album or whatever, into Tommy Bolin, and they were just like, oh, that was his, you know, blah, blah, whatever effect. And I, for the life of me, can't think of what it is now, but it is like a guitar effect that he used a lot, which was kind of his signature kind of thing. I mean, I love the guitar playing on it and the little fills he did during the verses, of course, the guitar solo, and Coverdale's vocals are probably like some of his best.
Yeah,
I think like he's he's just like he's very like into it right now. Like, this is the Coverdale that we like, confident, like, you know, great singer, like the Coverdale we've come to know. But yeah, he does great vocals on the song. I never was a huge fan of like the chorus because, like I said, it was kind of like a little mellowish, kind of like a weird background vocal, but it was never a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So what are you rating this song?
Well, did you just rate? Oh, I see you right now.
I did. This is unprecedented, folks. I just popped into the spreadsheet. And I deleted all my I just put a 3 for every song, which is obviously nothing on this album is going to get a 3.
Whoops, I put a smiley face in there by accident. That's like a Coverdale meme. I give this one a 4 because I enjoy it.
I am also giving it 4 Pilgrim hats. I think it's a really good rockin' opener for the song. And you know, I've talked about it before, but I like this, you know, you've got a concept like this. We don't need to go back and forth for 8 minutes trading off solos. You know, we just get it in, boom, boom, boom. It's a good song. You got some solos going on, and it's over. And I think it gets the point across.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Lady Luck.
I love the bass coming up.
That's great.
Classic. Come on, you know that's Glenn Hughes.
Classic Glenn Hughes bass. So this song is credited to Cook and Coverdale. Cook being Jeff Cook from Tommy Bolin's band Energy, because this is an old Energy song.
Huh.
Repurposed for this album. So it's the first Deep Purple song to feature an outside contributor ever, really, other than, you know, covers that they had done.
True.
So Coverdale wrote a new set of lyrics because Bolin couldn't remember the original ones. And then with the blessing of Cook, they did it on the album, and Cook got writing credits. It's got an unmistakable Coverdale flair to it. Another here, classic Bolin slide guitar solo. The bass is great.
I mean that's it. I mean, like Deep Purple is like totally like in 100% funk territory by this album.
And by the next song for sure.
Yeah, I mean if you don't think that like you go back to Burns, Stormbringer, like that stuff was just like penny candy compared to this. Like this album is like this is the one where you would accuse Deep Purple of getting too funky if you didn't like that.
And Richie would not have been happy.
No, Richie, I can't imagine Richie being part of this.
Another very short song, not even 3 minutes. 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
I like the way the song ends.
Short and to the point, get in, get out.
Coverdale and his evil laugh as one of his tricks walks through the studio door. It's time for me to get some nookie.
It's been 3 hours. I don't know how I survived so long. So there. And I do have the original version of Lady Luck as performed.
I've heard it before.
Tommy Bolin and Energy here. Very different sound to it.
Sort of the newest addition to our repertoire, and it's
more than almost a minute
Charles
longer.
Dickens, John Steinbeck approach to rock and roll
We'll
lyrics.
just get the feeling for it here.
A song called Lady Luck.
This was live radio broadcast. I don't think it was BBC. Much more straightforward blues.
Oh yeah, you could totally tell. Like Coverdale probably heard this and thought, like, yeah, this is my type of song.
Yep.
Because Jeff Cook is a very Coverdale sounding vocal.
Yeah. But they really did make this song their own. Because it's, apart from the lyrics, I don't know that I would have identified this as being the same song. That part there was a little similar.
Surprised they didn't go with this kind of feel for it. That would have been interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good... I like this one as well.
Because, I mean, you know, kind of... Like, if they did it like this, it might have that kind of a sail away feel, tempo to it.
Yep. But yeah, Cook and Coverdale definitely sound like they're from the same vocal school.
Yeah.
So anyway, just gives you a little idea of where that song came from. And Lady Luck, where are you going with that one?
I like it. I give it a 3. I think it's an average song. I think it's good. It's not great. It almost borders on like filler for me sometimes.
3, huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 3.5 Pilgrim Hats for me.
Yeah, not that I dislike it. It's just like you know, in the scheme of things, it's just like I feel like it's an okay song. There are some good elements in there. I love Hughes, like, you know, throwing a big funky bass in there during the verses and everything. But
yeah, it's not so much of a standout song as some other songs on this album would be. So.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's not as much of a standout. It's just it's good.
All right, coming to the next one, talking about funky. Getting Tighter. This is a song that is both funky and extremely rockin'.
Like the build up to this main part. And Glenn Hughes' first just lead vocal.
Yep, this first of the album. This is really a chance for him to shine. And this is one they would play live.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. This must have been interesting live.
And there was speculation as to whether tight meant drunk, like getting drunker. I don't know why they would say that, but Hughes said in an interview, absolutely not. To me, and what was in my mind when I wrote it, was about how good the groove can get and how tight I am with that bass drum. It's about how tight the music can be. And getting as great a groove as we possibly could. It was a celebration of that, really. We're tight, we're grooving, we're ready to go to a club, let's go.
And here comes the craziest musical breakdown of Deep Purple. Oh, I know you're hating this right now, Nate.
Oh, I can't stand it. Glenn's little vocal here.
Oh yeah, if Richie was dead, he'd be turning over in his grave right now. But I mean, this is pretty spectacular.
Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. And you think Richie had to have heard this at some point and just been like, oh.
You could probably hear you could hear him rolling his eyes from across England or whatever, just like, ugh.
This guitar right here. That's such a great introduction back into the song. So this song is Bolan and Coverdale all the way. I'm sorry, Bolan and Hughes all the way, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a good choice to not have Coverdale sing on this at all. This is the total Glenn Hughes love fest right here.
Oh yeah, this is. It's like both simultaneously the most Glenn Hughesy song ever and the most Tommy Bolin song ever.
And the most not Deep Purple song ever. I mean, honestly, when I hear a song like this or just this song, and then I just think back to, I don't know, The Shield or something like that, it's it's just you wonder how did they get from this to this? It's so different.
Yeah, and in 7 years apparently, essentially.
I know.
Just
I know.
from one to the other.
I mean, of course. I mean, it's because it's totally different people and eras and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're just thinking about I love Deep Purple, but you think about how many different styles of music, just even go through the different Mark lineups and everything like that. And it's just how just pick a song from each one, this one, and then one from each of the other ones, and just be man, it's not even the same. How is this even the same band?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
So, but I mean, in a great way. So, I mean, it's yeah, that's some pretty wild stuff. That's definitely one of the coolest Deep Purple songs, I think.
I would definitely agree. What's your rating, my friend?
All right, well, I'm giving it a 4 because I like it. Just for all the reasons that I mentioned, is just cool riff. That middle breakdown part is just it's almost every time I heard it, I thought it was almost goofy sounding.
Yeah, it's almost too much, but it's so great.
like when you hear it, it's and it's not, I'm not saying it in an insulting way either. I mean, it's definitely funky and there's a lot going on there, but it almost sounds there was almost it's this really kind of goofy kind of riff or kind of breakdown, but it's like, I don't know, there's something about it where it's just like every time this song comes on, you can't wait to hear that part.
Oh, I know. It's such a great instrumental breakdown.
Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's pretty awesome. So now, given that and knowing you, can I please predict what you're going to give this?
You can.
You're going to give it a 5, aren't you?
You're damn right. I'm gonna give it a 5.
I knew you were going to give us a 5 because I
Oh.
know how much you love this friggin' song.
Oh yeah, it's a great song. The first time I remember hearing this song for the first time and thinking like, why hadn't I heard this sooner? You know, it's just like you just hear something. It's kind of like the first time I heard the Butterfly Ball. It was just like, this is like you felt like this is what's been missing my whole life. Like this
Yeah.
is like this was written for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love this song. It's so good. It's such a rocking song. It's got that funk going on. Glenn Hughes at his absolute best. Tommy Bolin at his best. Love it. 5 absolutely. Boom, putting it in there. 5 Pilgrim hats, all buckled up and ready to go. All right. Anything more to say about Getting Tighter?
I'm wondering if, like, for this album, we should change it from like pilgrim hats to like, I don't know, hair feathers or morgue suspenders or something more appropriate.
Yeah, I know that we don't have Richie Blackmore anymore. You
No,
know,
we got to keep the pilgrim hat rating because it's like it's Deep Purple. But
yeah.
I would say for this album, we have to give it like 5, like, I don't know, 5 Studio 54s or something. I don't know.
5 lines of coke.
Yeah, I give this. All right, yeah, that's our rating system just for this album. 5 goblets of wine / lines of coke. Like, I don't know.
5 sleeping pills.
You know what? Let's just keep it pilgrim hats because now it's getting too
Yeah, it's gonna
crazy.
it's gonna get
Yeah.
too crazy.
All right, yeah, but yeah, definitely 5 hats. There we go.
Absolutely. Yeah, you knew it. You knew it. All right, next up, we've got the song Dealer. Great
Love this
drum
guitar
intro
tone.
here.
I've always loved this riff.
It's great.
Just always been so like grinding and dirty.
This song was written by Bolin and Coverdale.
Yeah. Another great vocal delivery by Coverdale. He's just like, he's kind of like down and dirty.
And Glenn Hughes says, this was David's song to me, I guess. He cared for me a lot and always had his head screwed on. He was talking about being snowblind and
I always like that. I always like that line. If you're snowblind, Madonna can hold you. Love all the guitar fills that Tommy Bolin is throwing in too.
And this is a song that would be it could very easily be kind of boring. But that extra guitar work that Bolin puts in there and all those little flourishes do make it a lot more interesting.
And speaking of Bolin,
Yep.
first appearance of Tommy Bolin in the bridge vocals. It kind of fits.
It does. I remember that being very jarring the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
But because it's just surprising, like hearing this new voice from out of nowhere. Tommy Bolin says this song is about junk. It's the best thing in the world when you have it, and the worst thing in the world when you don't.
Love this guitar solo.
He's he's always doing that extra stuff on a second track too, you know?
I just always felt like he was jamming out here. Like you could tell he was improvising and like just really killing it. And then this part right here.
Yep. That little panning from left to right.
On this part right here.
Man, what a player.
Like, I mean, you could hear that fast part that he was doing. It's like you could hear like the pick on the strings.
Yep.
You know, it's like that part in particular, I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, even though it's repetitive, it's like he was playing it so fast. I could like picture him just like intently like looking at the neck and just like going like this and just like focusing on like not screwing it up and just playing it as fast and as like nasty as he could. And then
if you ever get into one of those little loops on an instrument where you're playing it and you're like, I don't even know how I'm doing this. I better not think about it or else I'm going to mess it up.
Exactly. That's how it sounded. Sounded. It says that he just got into that zone and he's just like staring at it and he's just like, I'm just going to keep doing this until I can't do it anymore. And then dead bend. And it's like, and then all the stuff that's going on in the background too, just like that kind of bump and grind kind of riff that like you got the bass, the guitar, John Lord, just all like working together to just like have this like really just it's just such a nasty song. It's like
it is. And it starts off. It's the whole of the song is very, very short again, but that outro is really interesting musically.
But very rock and roll. That's what I mean to say by it. This is like this just a heavy rock, you know, and you can even see in like already the first few songs is like the Deep Purple formula is gone of guitar solo, organ solo. I mean, already it's just like, I mean, John Lord's in there, but he hasn't done anything really. Like,
no, he's not really made his mark yet.
Yeah, no John Lord solos. So that's kind of sad. But I mean, I'm enjoying Tommy Bolin so much that who really cares?
Yeah. All right. Your rating?
4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
I'm coming in. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just even though I love it, I'm taking like I just got to take a little bit off because it's like even though I like the Tommy Bolin vocal bridge, it's kind of like I could have done without it.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's a little, like I said, jarring.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we talked about that in one of the songs on Stormbringer with Glenn Hughes's part kind of came in, and you didn't think it as much as I did, but I felt like it kind of was a little shoehorned in almost. And it kind of felt the same way here, where it's like, well, Tommy wanted to get a vocal part on the song, so we'll do this.
Yeah. I mean, even if they went to that bridge and they kept it the same with, I mean, like the kind of guitar flourishes and stuff in the background was good. How it kind of went a little mellow and then went back into the heavy part is like, I feel like Coverdale could have done that.
Yeah.
Or maybe him and Tommy Bolin could have harmonized on it, or him and Glenn Hughes could have harmonized on it, like a la Byrne type of vocals or something. Like, I don't know. But I mean, that's, again, being nitpicky about it. But I mean, overall, it's just like one of my other favorite songs besides Coming Home. Is one of my favorites, slightly more than Coming Home, obviously.
I give it a 4. Again, I like it a lot, but kind of all the stuff you said. 4 Pilgrim hats for me. All right, ready to move on to the next song?
You keep on moving. Oh, not yet.
Keep on moving to
I Need Love.
Need Love. Coverdale just making those orgasmic noises as you start up the song. Oh yeah.
You know what has really struck me about was like Ian Pace's drums. It's just that big boom every time he hits them.
Yep.
I mean, nothing. Yeah, nothing terribly complex or anything, but it's just like a really standout. Maybe the way it was
Guitar
produced
part
and
here.
recorded.
What is this? Boom, 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 boom. Right here. Those little things make these songs to me. Those little flourishes.
Yeah, because you don't really hear Richie doing that kind of thing.
Not so much, no.
And this is very Tommy Bolin, like it's his stamps all over it.
Yep, and this is another Bolin Coverdale song. This is a great little groove here.
You can hear a little more John Lord in there. You hear that synthesizer, him just holding that one note.
Yep. Yeah, but like you said, Lord is not as present on this album as on others.
Yeah, it almost sounds like he's just kind of part of like the tapestry. He's not really doing. I mean, he's still holding it down. He's still providing, like, you know, rounding the music out. But I mean, he's not. I mean, for what we know that he can do, he's really. I feel like he's kind of holding back or was held back. His contributions weren't as forward in this whole album.
And now I like how they go back to this groove again. This is a great little instrumental breakdown here. There's so much going on between the two guitar tracks and I love how he just brings in one line and then we go back to it.
Yeah, kind of another funky, not as obvious as Hang Tighter, but almost similar.
A really interesting arrangement on this song, I think.
Yeah.
And then after that little back and forth, we get this part right here, this little mellow. Now they're kind of doing the same thing as before, but they're introducing vocals into it.
Little. Some really tasty playing from Tommy Bolin here. That's another line right there that you could picture him going like, I don't know how I'm doing this, but
I'm gonna lose it. He's balancing like plates.
But there are so many cool moments like that. Like when you hear a guitar player doing that.
He's like, listening to him, you hear it on this, you hear it very much on Spectrum. It's like he's just possessed. Like he doesn't even have control over what he's doing. He's just.
And the funny thing is that if you hear like just think of like not even like a shred guitar player from back then, but think of like how shred guitar players play now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, it's probably, you know, as fast or faster than that or whatever, but it's just like, or just say if you hear a shred guitar player that's as fast as that, and then you hear what Tommy Bolin's doing, it's like, I think the difference between that is that like, you can almost hear like every note and pick that he's doing, and you can follow it, even though like, you know, your brain is like trying to catch up to it, but it's like, it kind of can, you know what I mean?
Right. And
and that's what makes it so cool is like you can hear,
clean. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can hear how fast and frenzied it is, and then it's like at the other was and then he just kind of stops, and you're like, oh, jeez. Whereas like a shred player, you hear it and you like it and everything, but your brain really can't follow it as much.
Yeah, and also
a lot of times
shred players don't often stop. You know, like it's just non-stop.
But I mean, even if you do, you know, it's just. But I mean, I think that's a great example of like, you know, his phrasing too.
Yes.
is just that like he knew, you know, you hear a lot of musicians talk about like, you know, like the notes you play don't play are as important as the ones you do type of cliche and everything. But I mean, it's actually true. It's just like he could have just kept going and been like, you know, but he kind of stopped and then he kind of picked it up and did like a little, you know, kind of. So yeah, I mean, like awesome guitar work from him in this, and it's like easily like sometimes I feel like it's kind of a throwaway song. I'm like, I don't really feel like it. But over the years, the more I've heard it, the more I've come to appreciate those parts of it.
Yep.
And really enjoy it. So
for me, it's about the arrangement, that inventive stuff they do where he comes back with that one line and then they go right, you know,
yeah,
the lead, come up with the whole verse or whatever it is, but then they jump right back into it,
which I never thought about that before.
Back and forth a little bit, and then they hit you with the extended jam with that's the same as the first time, but they start layering in those vocals and then hit you with the guitar. It's just a great rockin'. It's like a straight 70s rock song, but then plus more, you know.
So 4 lines from me.
I give it 4.5 lines because I think it's, to me it's about that little breakdown and how they switch it back and forth. Without that, I think it would be a 4.
Yeah, no, it's definitely solid and a lot of cool stuff that like a lot of things times too is when I hear these songs, when I hear them at the time with you, aside from them being in the headphones, which I don't listen to any of these songs in headphones. I mainly listen to them in the car.
Sure, me too.
And which is where I listen to like 90% of my music these days.
Ditto.
But when I hear them in the headphones and then I hear things that you point out, like listen to the arrangement here, it's like that kind of gives me a different perspective on things, which will kind of color my ratings a little bit. Because it's like, oh, actually, yeah, that is kind of a different, you know, cool thing that I never thought of or really thought about before, heard of, or maybe Deep Purple hasn't done it before. So yeah, that's cool how the arrangement went from him kind of singing the chorus to them kind of going back to the solo section. And then that whole outro was basically what they did for the solo section.
Yep.
You know, which is this really cool, funky, a little less goofy, funky breakdown than Getting Tighter. And I say goofy with like the best.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean.
The most love.
Always teasing that line between too much. You know,
Yeah.
he's, like I said, he's like a nuclear reaction. You gotta keep him maintained or else it gets crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have a very David Coverdale song title, Drifter.
Did he come up with this one?
Yeah, are these his lyrics? It's hard to tell. A song about a drifter. Very standard Coverdale lyrics.
I mean, another great like riff.
Yep.
And I mean, one thing on this whole album that I mentioned before is just like, this is probably the most Deep Purple, the album where there's like the most riffs on it, like songs that start with a riff on a Deep Purple album. They all start with a guitar riff almost.
Yeah, it's a very guitar forward album. It's very funny that, you know, Richie leaves the band because he's not getting enough creative control. And then they turn it over to a brand new person in the band that they give almost total control to. You wonder if that just made him pissed off. Like, hey, he did like 70% of this album was all him. Like, what is going on? It would have been great, even better if Tommy Bolin was like, you know what I'd like to do on this album, guys? Uncover a Black Sheep of the Family. Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that would have been awful if he's just like, you know what, let's go in a medieval direction. And Richie's like, damn it. I like how they pick up the tempo here.
Yep. And Lord's got the organ going on here, but it's very subtle.
Yeah, very subdued again, very kind of in the background. I mean, another thing that you notice too is that the Hughes Coverdale vocals on the whole album aren't as really pronounced as they were on the previous albums. You know, they're not really doing as much harmonizing or back and forth as they did before, which I kind of miss.
I do too. I think a lot of it has to do with Hughes probably was in the studio for the least amount of time out of all of them because he left early to go to rehab and just unfortunately didn't work the first time. And
I said Coverdale Hughes, right?
I think so.
All right. I feel like I just said Bolan and Hughes, but Coverdale.
If you did, I know what you meant.
Yeah. Love this breakdown here.
Nice.
Like they do like a bunch of like tempo changes in the song that are really cool.
You've got just Lord just holding those chords and Tommy doing these volume swells.
Funny how like Richie does the same thing, but it sounds so different when Tommy does it.
Yes.
Glenn throwing his
It's almost like he starts hitting those quarter notes like, come on guys, let's come out of this. Like Glenn Hughes seems like he's ahead of everyone else. The song has a great close too.
Yeah, this last part is awesome.
The close almost reminds me of it's a Megadeth song. Closes kind of similar to that.
Wow. You find these like similarities where it's like I would have never thought of them. Like I could pick like as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, I could picture like I don't know which one, but
yeah, it's something on Rust in Peace, I know, and it just popped in my head right now. But at first I was thinking this sounds more almost like something Mark II would have done, but now I'm here.
Maybe like Hangar 18.
Five Magics, I think it might be. I'd have to listen to the album, but
total coincidence, but definitely like a cool thing to think of if you're a fan of both bands or albums.
Yeah, I guess a lot of enough people are. But
if you like Rust in Peace, you'll love Come Taste the Band.
Like, that Dave Mustaine is a damn funky guitar player.
I wouldn't even put it past him these days to do that, to just like throw it out there not to get off on a tangent, but I mean, Dave Mustaine has done some stuff to surprise people over the years. Like, I don't know if it was him or I want to say, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like that kind of breakdown, that clean breakdown at the end of High Speed Dirt.
Yeah. Yep.
Was just like the first time I ever heard that, I was just like, that's insane because it's just
he plays like the solo all clean. Like, yeah, that's a really.
But he goes, and then it was like, where did that come from? But it's like, but you knew that it was awesome.
It was great. Yeah.
But it's like, if you're a hardcore, like Killing Is My Business fan, you're just like, what's that shit? But I mean, seriously. But I mean, seriously, I mean, if you are a fan of music, if you're a fan of guitar players, I mean, especially, I guess, if you've gotten older, like we have, does that stuff really matter? I mean, as long as it sounds cool, I mean, does it really matter if it's clean or
no, of course not,
or if it has a country twang to it, or like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, that's what always makes things interesting. I don't like albums or bands that like every song sounds the same way and the same tones and everything. I like when they're changing things up and trying different things, which is why I like later era Deep Purple, I guess.
Yeah, and that is the same reason that I like later era Black Sabbath too. Just to kind of go back to the same time period too. It's just like a lot of people don't like Sabotage or Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die, and those albums had a lot of problems with them, but I mean they also had a lot of weird, like different kind of stuff in them, and it's like, yeah, the first few Sabbath albums were like straight ahead rock, but it's like if you want to hear some experimental stuff, some really cool different stuff, like whether it was misguided or like whatever people said at the time. It's like still very cool.
Well, Sabotage has always been my favorite Sabbath album. I love it. And
Here.
why? I mean, why the hell would you want to hear the band do the same thing every time? Just like, oh, a rehash. And we talked about it in one of the last episodes. It's like, oh, it's too. They're either complaining because it's too similar to the last album they put out, or it's too different. You've got to walk that fine line. It's like they want the same experience they got with the last album, but you can never recreate that. So you just let the band do what they want to do and try take some risks and do some different stuff. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
I mean, I enjoy, what I enjoy is a return to form. Like, that's not bad. Like, if a band goes off on a tangent and they do like 2, 3, 4 different albums or whatever, and then like, I don't know, they take a hiatus or they take a couple of years and then they put out another album that's like, oh, it's got the rawness of the first album and it does remind you of like an earlier album. That's cool to return to form. But I mean, if the previous 3 or 4 albums were the same, I mean, how boring would that have been?
Yeah,
right?
I agreed completely.
So anyways, this song, as much as I like it, I've decided on a 3.5. Because I don't think it's quite up to a 4 for me, but it's got some great elements in it.
I gave it a 4. It did it for me.
And isn't that all that matters? as we were just saying.
That's what really matters. We're all friends here.
At the Deep Purple podcast.
Low, head cold voice now.
Oh boy.
Sweet songs of Deep Purple.
How about if I talk like this?
Yeah. Next up, we have a track called Love Child.
Yeah, that's a perfect time for your voice to go all low.
This always reminded me of like Hendrix. Hendrix Zeppelin-y kind of riff.
And also nice to hear like John Lord prominent in the background of an opening to the song. Finally.
We'll get some squealing organ from John Lord, which is nice.
Nice heavy. I think it's definitely like this kind of cool, slow, melodic riff, and then it's just like nice heavy.
But the slides up on the bass. Not right, maybe right here. Oh, maybe it's later in the song.
Yeah, I know. I never remember when he does it. But it's like you hear that and you're just like, he couldn't help himself.
I was the same way.
It's heavy. Let's throw some funk in there. And I mean, I love the effect on Coverdale's voice. Like, you can definitely hear like the reverb of the room on his vocal, which is so cool.
Yep. And of course, they're gonna bring in a little funky interlude a little later.
Here comes the bass slide.
Yeah, here it is. You just see him with his shirt unbuttoned down to his navel, just.
And finally, we get some John Lord solo.
Got a great one at that.
And no organ.
Nope, he's bringing in the Moog or something. Almost sounds like P-Funk. I love that how tight that groove is in the background. Expect to hear Bootsy Collins. Oh yeah, baby.
See, and nothing show-offy about it. You know, he just went in there and did a cool like synth solo.
Very, very understated and appropriate for the song. And here we have another like pretty much straight 3-minute song. with a really clutch little ending there.
Yeah, you still get the little things in there of some of the musicians that you can tell. Like you could tell the little Ian Pace drum fill, like boom, boom.
Yep.
It's like it's funny because I'm not a drummer. I don't know anything about drums, but it's just like I can pick out certain things that drummers do where I'm like, I know that that's them. Kind of like when I hear a certain like guitar tone or like licks or something like that from a guitar player, and I'm like, oh, I know that that's Richie. I know that's Tommy Bolin. I know that's whoever. So that's kind of interesting that at this point I can tell like, oh, that's like a Ian Paceism right there. Like
Yeah.
that's something really Ian Pace, you know. It's so that's pretty neat that you sometimes you hear stuff like that where it kind of like almost retains like classic Deep Purple a little bit. Like you hear little stuff in there from him where you're like, oh, I remember him doing that thing on Made in Japan or whatever.
Yeah,
So
he's got a style to him for sure.
yeah, where you recognize their style. So, but yeah, definitely some cool stuff there.
All right, what are you rating Love Child?
Boy, this is tough because it's good. I don't want to rate it too low, but I don't want to rate it too high. So, you know what? I'm not. Hang on, I'm having a little trouble accessing my document here. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4
Yep, I was thinking the same thing.
because I think it's like a cool riff. I like that John Lord finally gets some attention there, and he doesn't do the typical John Lord thing. Like obviously,
You're laughing because I'm blowing my nose with the.
it's just really
John is
fun.
laughing because he can see me blowing my nose, but he can't hear it. It's just a very funny dynamic.
Well, it is because I just see this visual of you just being like really intense, like, but there's like no noise, and it's just like it's hilarious. I don't think that will never not be funny.
Well,
But yeah,
by next episode, hopefully I'm not doing this.
yeah. Well, it would be like, I know it's like really morbid, but if you like turned it off, and then all of a sudden you just see like like somebody come up from behind you and strangle you, and you're like, there's no noise.
They're strangling me, and they put on the mute switch.
I don't know. It reminds me of something from like maybe like a Simpsons cartoon or something like that, or a movie or something.
Like a Zucker movie or something, you know, like you're just like
where like people are talking in the foreground and there's like something like horrendous going on in the background, and you just see the motions of people like arguing or fighting or getting strangled, but you don't hear the audio, and that's why that's funny.
Naked Gun was like, "Move along, people. There's nothing to see here." In the background, there's like planes crashing and explosions.
Exactly. But that would be like that, but with no sound. So
exactly. Okay.
All right. Anyways, away from that now. Speaking of John Lord getting his day in the sun.
Yes, we have the next track up is co-written by John Lord and Glenn Hughes. And I always thought it was weird that they put these two songs are always considered one track. I know one kind of fades into the other, but they're obviously two distinct songs. But anyway, this is This Time Around, and then it's going to go into Ode to G. Glenn Hughes said he heard John Lord playing this in the studio and jumped in and immediately started joining him to create the song together. And every instrument on this is played by John Lord. It's just piano and synths.
So first of all, great to hear this like kind of a different song where there's just piano and synth and vocals, and that's it. Glenn Hughes vocals are like awesome. Like some of his best vocals ever.
I agree 100%.
And it's just like, you know, typical John Lord brilliance, just layering all the different sounds and parts.
lyrically a very great song too. It's a very dark song. A great moment. And Hughes said he laid down the vocals at 2 a.m. alone in the studio with Martin Birch.
Wow, Glenn Hughes and the Wasp pulling an all-nighter.
Hughes had probably been up for 3 days straight.
Well, whatever he was doing, it worked. He friggin' nailed it.
Yeah, he said he would get in trouble with drinking drugs and all those problems and stuff, and he was thinking, like, what if this is the end? And this is the song that kind of came to him.
Yeah, there's like nothing else to say about this. Like, this is probably my one of my favorite Glenn Hughes vocals on record.
Yeah, if not my favorite. It almost sounds like some Mellotron in the background there too. One reviewer called this the purple song Stevie Wonder will wish he'd written a year from now. I love that little piano run he does right there.
Yeah.
Here comes Ian Pace.
And then I see how they put these two songs together because, I mean, it has the same melody to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they recorded them separately and then sequenced them together in the studio, but it's I always loved the dynamic of this, going with this really mellow, soulful, beautiful melody into this just what's arguably the hardest song on the album.
And I mean, actually, it's been a while since Deep Purple did like an instrumental.
Yeah, I mean, they did on Burn, they did A200.
Strike that remark from the record.
Well, prior to that, I don't think they did any in Mark II.
No, it was all that instrumental, that crazy instrumental stuff from Mark I did.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, this one feels like more like a real instrumental, whereas like A200 was kind of like an experimental.
Right. This is a straight ahead. This has like a melody. It has a verse, chorus, almost sort of situation going on.
Yeah.
And all this song is all about the dynamics. His double track guitar is so incredible. This is, to me, this defines this album, this whole moment here between these two songs, just this transition they're making from, you've got acoustic and synth related stuff going into this hard rocker with Tommy Bolin just giving it everything he's got. This part is great. I love when they're stopping on that second progression. You can hear Tommy Bolin's string ring out just a little bit in your left ear, like.
Great ending, again.
Like little Jimi Hendrix.
I know, I was just going to say a little foxy lady going on there.
That's great. To me, that's a great, again, here we have this, just kind of like the Gypsy in the last album. We've got this epic, like second to last track that just sets the stage for the ending of the album. You could have ended it right there, in my opinion, and it would have been great. They go into another great song after this, but that is a really epic conclusion to this side of the album before we hit the end.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and apparently they were going to, sounds very dumb, but Ode to G, the G in Ode to G is meant to refer to Gershwin, and they were going to apparently name the first part of the song Gersh and the second part Win. Seems kind of like a dumb joke, but it would have been especially weird to be like this beautiful soulful song that Glenn Hughes sings. What's that song called? Gersh. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's
the world around us hangs in doubt. Okay, yeah, Gersh. I don't know.
Yeah,
Luckily,
no
not
good.
to do that. Not that it would have made any difference.
But yeah. Anyways, I'm glad that some of these things you're just like, oh, they were going to call the album this or the song this, and I always think, boy, I'm glad they didn't.
Right.
So yeah, and this one was hard because you know how stingy I am with my fives. So I gotta give this a 4.5.
Well, I'm going with a 5.
Yeah.
This to me, this is my favorite Deep Purple song. If you could, even if these were two separate songs, I'd give them both a 5. But together, even I consider it kind of as almost being one song, but I just love it because it's so interesting to have this almost like piano and vocal just duet, and then goes into a full band, just rock out for the end. It's the arrangement of it's great. I love the lyrics. I love everything about it. I'd give it 6 if I could, but we're almost out of Pilgrim hats.
Wow, so that's like a boy. You're gushing over that like I gushed over like You Fool No One.
I think I mean it's my favorite. Like you said, I think it's Glenn Hughes' best vocal performance, and it's just a beautiful song, followed up by you've got this great, the only song that Glenn Hughes and John Lord ever wrote together. John Lord's now passed, and then goes into this Tommy Bolin composition who's passed. It's just it's like passing the torch from John Lord to Tommy Bolin, and then closing out the album with everybody. I love that. I love that moment in the album.
Yeah, it's definitely like yeah. I mean, it's there's no doubt it's like a great song, great composition.
Okay. And we've only got one track left on this album. One track left in the Mark IV lineup and this whole run until we get into the Perfect Strangers reunion. And that track is You Keep On Moving. It's very mellow beginning to the song. Why I kind of think it's a great little album closer.
Yeah. And I like how they start off with like a little bass riff.
And Coverdale and Hughes wrote this together. It was one of the first songs they wrote together. It was going to be for Burn, but never made it onto the album.
Like little effects Tommy's throwing in.
It's like he just got that delay pedal that day, and he's like, "Ooh, let me play around with this thing.
Well, let me make a seagull noise there." No, but all kidding aside, the build-up is like. Finally, some Coverdale Hughes harmonizing.
I know you have to wait till the end of the album, pretty much.
Worth the wait, though.
Hughes said that they wrote this about at David's flat in August of 1973. He said, but Richie Blackmore, bless him, didn't like You Keep On Moving, so we had to wait until Tommy came in before we could use it.
Just hear that build up of the organ. Love how the both of them are taking on the verses. I always love that line. You put your arms around me like a circle around the sun.
Yeah.
Always tried to think about what the hell it means, but it's just like, I just know that it's cool.
It's one of those lyrics that it doesn't need to mean anything. It just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Here we go. Jon Lord getting a proper organ solo.
Oh. Finally, some classic sounding Deep Purple in here. And it's very appropriate too. It fits. It's not shoehorned in.
Nope. This was released as a single, but it was not successful.
What a shame. Such a good song.
Doing that cool thing again, going back to Burn, where they're trading off choruses, and sometimes singing together, sometimes alone.
And I love the way the Coverdale sings the circle around the sun line too. That's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's like giving it everything he's got.
I wonder if Tommy Bolin was part of this harmonizing.
Apparently he sings on the line and the cry still returning. I guess they all sing on that one. So would it be right here? It's hard to make it out, but...
Yeah, hard to tell because Hughes and Bolin have really similar sounding voices.
Yes, what's that song on... Is it on Teaser where Glenn Hughes sings like the last verse? And for the longest time I was like, man, Tommy Bolin just belts it out on this verse. And I'm like, after like a few years of listening to it, I was like, oh, it's Glenn Hughes singing that one. But it doesn't sound outside the realm of possibility, but it's like all of a sudden he just kicks it up into overdrive.
And then a little bass slide to end it off.
Yep. He's like, I'm going to be the last thing heard on a Deep Purple album.
You're going to hear the growl of my bass, baby.
Then Mark II reunited. He's like, damn it.
That was a great way to end it, though.
Oh, yeah, it's a great ending.
I mean, to me, like, on this album, that's probably the most perfectly crafted song. For everything that we said about all the breakdowns and the ups and downs of the other songs and everything, like, I just feel that has the most classic Deep Purple elements in it.
And it's got so much feel to it, so much passion.
Yes. Yeah, because like the vocal performances are on, and the build up to like the verse, like to the build up from the beginning of the song to like when it kicks in is just like great. And you have, like we said, a proper organ, classic organ solo from Jon Lord. It's not the screaming like trip over the organ type of thing, but it's it's perfect in there, and it's just everybody's parts in there are just like perfect. And finally we get some harmonizing like a la Burn or Stormbringer from Coverdale Hughes, and the trade-off vocals and everything, like just all like, if you want to talk like classic, meaning like pre this album.
Mm-hmm.
just like classic elements you would expect from Mark III.
Absolutely.
Let's say with Richie, what Richie was. Um, Even though this has like no Richie feel to it, it's just this is what it's a good song. So
I
I'll
agree.
stop gushing right now.
What are you ranking it?
Boy, this is a tough one for me. You know what? Everything on this is tough because I'm stingy with my ratings. And so like almost like with my money, it's like I don't want to.
Well, giving it a good rating isn't going to cost you anything.
That is true. My integrity, maybe.
Yes.
No, but this song, like, I think the criteria that I go over in my mind is kind of like the other ones where I'm like, I never not want to hear this song because it's just so good. So I'm going to give it the elusive 5.
Whoa. All right. I love to see that. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
I mean, we're at the end of the line here. I may as well.
Just give the last 3 songs a 5. Just
Right? It's just like if you have like PTO that's use it or lose it by the end of the year. It's like, let's just use it all.
I'm taking December off, baby.
So, yeah, that's it. I'm taking December off. Like this is the end of like the classic Deep Purple 70s era. So let's just give out one last 5.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the song is deserving of it.
All right. Excellent. And that concludes our ratings for Come Taste the Band. Where does this stack up in our albums so far?
Well, let us see. I feel like it's going to be high. So let's take a peek. So Come Taste the Band. So, wow, this is very interesting. Well, actually, it is and it isn't because, I mean, of course, it's going to be typical for us. So Come Taste the Band gets the same combined rating from us as Stormbringer.
Exactly. Wow.
Yep. And like just a couple of basis points. You like that business
Little basis points. Yeah.
little business lingo I threw in there. A couple of
sell.
No, a couple of points higher than Burn. Like we got like an 8.31 for Burn, 8.33 for Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band.
8.33 exactly. Wow.
Yes, exactly. Followed by Machine Head, Made in Japan, and In Rock, which was like just surprised that In Rock didn't get higher, but yeah. So let me see. Then after that is let me see, Fireball. Who do we think we are? Deep Purple, self-titled. Concerto and Book of Taliesin were tied.
Another tie.
Yep, at 6.0. Shades was 5.38. And then, well, you included it as part of the
the complete
thing,
episode 6, but
the complete episode 6 came in at the bottom, but Deep Purple proper, the Shades of Deep Purple album, came in dead last.
not super surprising.
So really, like, I guess not surprising for us, Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band were our most liked albums, like if you want to talk in terms of combined ratings.
Sure.
In terms of our ratings, Come Taste the Band, well, not surprisingly, you liked it actually you liked it a lot more than I did. Same thing with Stormbringer, but I beat you out for Burn.
Yeah, you like to Burn a little bit more.
Yes, but I mean our variance between liking like Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band were pretty big. Well, Stormbringer was the biggest one. It was a 0.44 variance, almost like a half point variance there.
Yeah.
Our Burn variance was very small, and our Come Taste the Band was like about a quarter. So, I mean, we're pretty close, but I mean that has to do with like how how cavalier you were with your 5 ratings.
I just handed them out like they were candies.
But yeah, I mean, knowing our history and what we liked for Deep Purple, I mean, it's no surprise. We might have even said it during like the first episode or first couple of episodes that like the, Mark III and Mark IV were our favorite lineups by far. Um, Maybe not the most popular opinion of people that like love Smoke on the Water, but I mean, if you're a real Deep Purple fan, I mean, it's just like somebody that's not just casually into them, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. I can't believe that we would be the only people that love this era of the band. Like,
No, there's other people out there. I was actually conversing with a couple of people on Twitter this week who were like, we were just going back and forth about how they kind of had all the same ideas that we did about that. So there's people out there. It's just not the mainstream.
exactly. But so I guess our ratings don't surprise us. Although I am kind of surprised that like certain albums weren't like higher up than they were, like just a little bit, just by looking at it.
Yep.
So yeah.
There you have it.
So that's
all right. I just stopped the recording for 1 second.
okay.
I just have to. The file's getting a little long, so I have to start it over.
And before you do that, it's very seems very fitting. It's like all the work seemed to have stopped outside my building.
Yeah, I know. It worked out really well.
Yeah, like right after the fire alarm went off, it's just like there's literally like not a ladder, like a piece of plywood or anything to be found like anywhere. Like it's like everybody just evacuated. It's also, it looks like it's ready. The sky is ready to open up. So maybe they decide to call it a day.
Oh, good.
And that's why they were working so frantically earlier. I don't know.
Well, overall, it wasn't too bad. There was a few little things that I could probably even just leave it in. It's not a big deal.
Well, the fire alarm soundbite should be good for a blooper at the end of the next of this episode.
Yeah, I got to do something with that.
But anyway.
All right. Should we close it up?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a few things to wrap it up. The reception and review to the album. So the work that Bolin did on the album, if it had carried into the live shows, I think the fans would have been very upset. But the real problem with Mark IV was Bolin and Hughes' inconsistency and spiraling problems with addiction. So the tour, you hear a lot of mixed reviews, like it was either great or it was terrible. They had good nights and bad nights. They just weren't consistent at all.
Yeah.
This album's often forgotten or dismissed, unfortunately. And after recording the album, Hughes went to rehab for the first time, but it wasn't successful. So Steve Peacock summarized the album in the weekly publication Street Life with the following. This is his review of the album. Riff, squark, solo, squark. Come again? Solo, riff, fade. That's what he said the album sounded like to him.
Well, you know what? Maybe he didn't like the album, but at least our name isn't Steve Peacock.
I love hearing you get pissed at the bad reviews. Screw you, Steve Peacock.
At least we have normal names.
Or somewhat.
What kind of stupid review is that?
Fanfare called it the best since Machine Head. So that's
okay. All right. I beg to differ, but I enjoyed the positive review.
And NME said probably their best since, let's say, In Rock. Wow. So Circus Magazine suggested Come Taste the Band was a concept album about the psychic dislocations of the rock lifestyle. No friggin' idea what that means.
Wait a minute. Say it again. The what?
It was a concept album about the psychic dislocations of the rock lifestyle.
I bet you that if we thought about that hard enough, we'd be able to figure it out. I kind of get what they're saying, but it's like we'd have to dedicate more time to like dissecting that sentence. But I can see where they're going with it. That's a kind of a
concept album, and Deep Purple do not compute in my head. It's like they're just always collections of songs to me.
Well, that's the thing is like I've heard reviews of other albums like kind of like you could like a reviewer will be like you could call it a concept album based on these things, and they kind of like put forth like the what do you call it, the thesis, the theory, or whatever, the hypothesis that, oh well, this is why it could be a concept album. But I mean, obviously the band didn't intend it to be that, and so it's not. But it's always interesting
reading in like these weird things to it. Oh well, if you look at it like this and this is symbolic of that, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can make anything work that way.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a cool take on it, I guess I could say. Like it's not negative, so
right. So some people really loved it, but unfortunately, by the time really it was released and fans became aware of it, everything just came crashing down, and the band just ended. So we'll get into that in more detail in our next episode. But the end of the band, and talk about some of the other tracks that we haven't talked about from Burn, Stormbringer, and Come Taste the Band, the unreleased tracks. And that's the end of the run up till 1976, and we'll pick it up next episode with the little recap of Mark III and Mark IV, because it all happened so fast. And after that, we'll start jumping around and trying to find things here and there. So in the news this week, Glenn Hughes, unfortunately, had to cancel his South American tour. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it was due to like a disagreement with the promoters, right?
Yeah. So yeah, they weren't fulfilling their contractual obligations. So Glenn Hughes pulled out, unfortunately, but they're trying to plan something for 2021. I know Piero, our friend over on Twitter, who lives in Uruguay, is a little disappointed, but hopefully you get to see him in 2021. And then,
well, I mean, at least it's good that he didn't have to pull out for health issues.
Yes, like the last time. Yeah.
Because when I first read that, I got a little worried, and then he was like, contractual obligation. Oh, good. Well, at least it wasn't his health. So
yeah, they weren't sorting out the M&Ms by color for him or whatever. The classic rock and roll thing.
I don't want any damn blue M&Ms.
Pull them all out. So in other news, Flying Colors' new album is set to be released on October 4th, and this is Steve Morse's band, where he's in this band with Mike Portnoy. Do you know Mike Portnoy?
Yes.
The unbelievable drummer. And they're in a band together. Also, Neil Morse, who is not related to Steve Morse. Casey McPherson on lead vocals and keyboards, and Dave LaRue on bass. So
interesting.
Another little extended family thing from Steve Morse there. And then in our history segment, we have first up on September 11th, 1989, Ian Gillan joins Black Sabbath on stage, and they perform Smoke on the Water as an encore. So I don't know if this is between his time. This is obviously a picture from Born Again, but I don't know if this was before his time coming back to Deep Purple for the third time. Or maybe, I don't know why he was there, but anyway, they jammed together and did the song.
It's a cool-ass picture of them.
It is a great picture. It's funny because it's like you've got this picture, but then you've also got the pictures with Bill Ward on that album too, because he played on the album but didn't play on the tour. You got Bevan there, like joining them on the pictures. So, but great picture. I couldn't find a picture from that 1989 performance or the performance itself, because that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then, so this is the week of September 9th through September 15th. Holy cow! September 9th, 2003, Deep Purple releases the album Bananas, which I am not super familiar with, but it universally does not get great reviews. And it's got to be one of the weirdest titles for an album and album covers. It's, if you haven't seen it, it's somewhat look like banana farmers sitting on a big pile of bananas, and it just says Deep Purple Bananas.
And that's it, folks.
And it's kind of very like, the Ian Gillan subtlety there. I don't know, just put a big pile of bananas on the
I was going to say, when you were talking about how Ian Gillan really just doesn't give a shit about what people think about him anymore, I feel like that's how they're just approaching their albums these days. It's like, yeah, just put some banana farmers and some bananas on it. Okay, we're Deep Purple. Who cares what they think? Which, I mean, it's got to be a pretty liberating way to, like, approach life at this point.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not saying that they did that, but I mean, it's just like when you see some of this stuff, you're just like, oh, they have to just be like, F the world. Like, let's just do whatever the hell we feel like doing. Let's be as ridiculous as we want to be.
And this would have been the first album featuring Don Airey after John Lord retired to work on his classical stuff. So we'll be getting into that album one of these days. And finally, sadly, on September 12th, 2014, Johnny Gustafson, pictured there on the left, passed away and left behind a musical legacy. We've talked about him in Quatermass, and he was in episode 6 briefly. Here he is pictured with the Big Three, who played in Liverpool with the Beatles, and he's done a lot of different stuff, and great vocalist. Love his work. He was in Jesus Christ Superstar. He was Butterfly Ball, all this great stuff we're going to get to one day. So rest in peace, Mr. Gustafson. And that is it for our Come Taste the Band episode.
Wow.
We made it through a debilitating Canadian head cold and a extremely noisy. We're cutting out huge portions of the show today with banging and fire alarms and every other thing that was happening outside your house. So
yes. For a while, I thought maybe I'd have to do my part of the episode in a friggin' ambulance or something.
Well, luckily we were able to get through it, and I thought we were gonna have to reschedule for sure. But glad we got to get through this episode. Been looking forward to it for a while. Next week we'll wrap it up, and then we're free to just kind of bounce around and talk about what some of our old friends have been up to since we've left them in previous episodes.
Yes.
All right. Good talking to you, my friend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also give us a rating on iTunes to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.